Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It's the summer of guests. And now we've stopped the summer of guests. It's Texas Chainsaw Month revisited. We took a very logical stop at the original and now we're on remake territory. So now we're back with the 2003 version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Josh, tell us what this movie is about. Tell us what this
Um,
movie's about, but you can't mention anything you've already mentioned.
can I mention the title? Can I just say the title back to you and that's what the movie's
I
about?
mean, it kind of is. It kind of is. This movie was directed by Marcus Nispel. It was written by a bunch of people. Scott Kozer wrote it, and Toby Hooper did not have anything to do with it. It stars Jessica Biel, Jonathan Tucker. But yeah,
Well,
so this is a remake. Oh, it stars R. Lee Ermey in like one of the best Texas Chainsaw characters. So, what did you think of this film, and why are you stupid and wrong all the time?
and after seeing the first four movies, where the first one's obviously like very like specifically as these like themes of like the meat industry and family and stuff, this movie lacks a lot of that. And I think that's kind of where I'm like, oh, this
See,
movie's
I
not really
think
about something in the way the other movies are. And that's where I'm like, oh, it's just
I
it's kind of like
do.
going through the motions.
This movie is very much like what you think the other movies are.
Right, right.
Because it's like, yeah, there's no theme. Like every other movie up until this point has dealt with the idea of like how our generation looks at violence. And I did kind of want to see how this movie was going to like touch upon that fact. But this movie is just kind of like, oh no, this is just like there's no theme really to it other than like just generic survival. Um
Yeah, and I think part of it too is because it's supposed to it's a remake, so it takes place in like 1973. You would think it took place now.
Here's the thing. This movie is 100% Jessica Biel's best movie, and we'll talk about her a little bit more. But I do feel like her, and like all of the family members are the only ones who are kind of trying to make it seem like it's the 70s. Because she talks more proper, and she's like, the way she kind of carries herself and like the way she uses dialogue is better. But then, and Jonathan Tucker kind of does it, but then you have like Eric Balfour and Mike Vogel. Eric Balfour plays Kemper, her boyfriend, and Mike Vogel plays Andy, just another guy who's gonna get murdered. And they both talk like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Did you guys watch the newest
Yeah,
episode of Even
it's the
Stevens?"
teens. Yeah, they're very like I
He's
don't
like
know.
wearing a hat and he's wearing like a unbuttoned shirt. It's like that wasn't a style in the 70s, guys.
Yeah,
Like, and Jessica Biel and like Jonathan Tucker are legit wearing bell bottoms, and then Eric Balfour is just wearing like baggy jeans. He's just wearing baggy jeans and like an open shirt with a black shirt underneath. Like nobody would dress, and he has like the stupid ass chin beard. It's like you're completely taking me out of this movie just by you specifically, Eric Balfour.
well, that's
That
where
said,
I
he
mean
does do
it
a good
doesn't
job
need to
as
take
Blake.
place in the 70s either. Like
I
the
mean,
way
why
they
not?
do it. Right, I'm almost like if they're gonna do it all the way. But it could have been a modern retelling. It doesn't really matter. I don't know.
I mean, we're gonna get into a lot of modern retellings, and we'll revisit whether you think that was a good idea.
Well, that's true. I haven't seen any movie past this one, so maybe this is actually a high water mark
And
for
I
the.
think that there is that kind of like right now, because we've seen them all back to back, it does kind of feel more like a rehash. But I like that it takes place in the 70s, and I like the opening, like at the very beginning, it starts with like it's a good way to start it without like just repeating the old timey camera thing, and you're kind of doing it, but kind of not, you know?
Yeah, I didn't mind that.
And then like the cops like, here's some nails and here's some like hair, and you're like, oh, I wonder if this is gonna come back. And then it like cuts to these guys having fun, and I like, okay, out of all, here's the thing, and I didn't think this was a controversial opinion. It's definitely not in terms of general consensus, but it is in terms of Josh's hipster doofus consensus, because I feel like this movie kind of belongs with one of the in the same vein as like these are the remakes that work. is Texas Chainsaw, The Thing.
Yeah, right.
But
I was
like,
gonna
yeah,
say.
Dawn of the Dead. It feels very similar to Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, where it's like, yeah, you did kind of take out all the social commentary and all the intelligence out of the film, but I'm having a good time, you know.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I understand why they don't have a guy go on a 5 minute rant about working in a meat packing plant. But at the same time, I appreciated it when it wasn't there in the original. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
do see, and like there is like an easy way to do it with, especially with the sheriff. The movie starts, you see the old footage, you see them kind of talking, and you get introduced to all the characters, and then they meet a hitchhiker, much like in the original. In this one, they're going to a concert. They're not going to see their grandfather's graves detected, but they run into a hitchhiker, and in the original, as we know, the hitcher becomes like part of the family. But in this one, in again one of the most striking scenes in the whole movie, like the girl's like going crazy, or she's very quiet, and she's like, they like, she notices where they're going, and she starts going crazy, and she's like, "You're going the wrong way," and they're like, "What?" And then she pulls out a gun and she blows her head off. It does perfectly set you up for how this movie is going to be, because I feel like before this point, like the kids are kind of joking around, they're like smoking weed and being like hot teens. um and so they're kind of like going to Leonard Skinner concert, and it's like, okay, so it's just going to be like a kind of funny, like regular sequel to Texas. Because I mean, regardless, every sequel to the Texas Chainsaw has been pretty lighthearted in one way or another, even in either in not being effective unintentionally, or because intentionally they didn't want to be as intense as the original Texas Chainsaw. And I feel like this one hits the perfect balance, where that first scene lets you know, like, oh no, we're at least gonna try to be intense as the original one. The original, I liked the Next Generation.
Is that the Matthew
I
McConaughey one?
yeah.
Yeah,
I,
me too. I do like
I
that one
guess
a
I
lot.
guess I am the perfect host for this podcast,
I
and
mean, I just like Matthew McConaughey, but
I
yeah.
like this one, and it's like the first two I really liked. The first ones that I liked them because of how heavy they are on theme, and the way the ongoing theme of the series of how this audience particularly looks at violence and the way it's committed. And then this one kind of throws it all out the window, and it just gives you like a visceral, fun kind of haunted house movie. And it's scary, but it's not scary, like it doesn't stay with you for days. It's like scary in the moment, which is why I call it a haunted house movie. But I still like it. I guess I just like the way it was done
Yeah,
more
no,
so.
I like the setup. It's more like I question the way they frame it. I don't know. It's hard to
Yeah,
like. Obviously, it lacks the same themes of like story and like the family and stuff like that. Like it's
I
that's
do. I
kind of
do.
like put in the background.
And then I also feel like this movie, like all the characters, are given more characterization in all the movies. the the family always has a lot of characterization, but not the people being hunted. Sometimes even the main characters aren't given that much characterization, but in this one they are. Like, you have the Jonathan Tucker plays like the dude with the glasses who's like an annoying asshole. And
Yeah,
even
he's very
like
yeah.
there's a scene with the boyfriend who, even though he looks like he's from a 90s rock band, like he has that thing where he's like constantly trying to help out Aaron, played by Jessica Biel, and he's just constantly messing up
Right.
things.
No, they are believable in this as like a
Yeah,
couple. Yeah.
because he's like, he's not trying to mess things up, he just kind of messes things up. And then later when he gets got and Leatherface is hanging him upside down, a ring falls out of his finger, and like Leatherface like looks at it in a clearly for the screen move, because like, why does Leatherface not know what a ring is? Because he kind of like examines it, like, what's this? Like, you've seen a ring before, Leatherface. You kill people
This
all
was
the time.
also this was also kind of where you feel like let's make it bigger and better, because I feel like in the original he obviously had his dungeon, but in this his dungeon is like enormous and very well organized. He's got
Yeah,
like
I
here's my fingers, here's my ears, you know. He's
I
got
also
all
feel
his
like that's a trope of early 2000s horror. Because remember, also in Friday the 13th, Jason has like his underground tunnel full
oh
of
yeah, yeah.
full of like why do you have this maze and how long did it take you? We always had that joke about the remake where it's just Jason like at Home Depot with like 40 crates of lumber and he's like, yeah, I just gotta pick this stuff up and then I'm gonna head over to my mom's house. But yeah, and I feel like even the girl isn't like just no one's a real throwaway character, even if you do know they're kind of gonna get killed really quickly. um there's two logical additions. It's the sheriff also being part of the family because he'd kind of have to be.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's
then like you find out later, the whole community kind of knows about
yeah,
him, but
and
he's like,
that's the
yeah,
second addition, is that the whole community is also, if they're not part of it, they're at least aware of what's happening and they kind of let it happen. And you kind of get the sense that Leatherface and the sheriff, they kind of supply the town with like money and like food and stuff because they're killing these people and like assuming selling their shit. Uh, and so you kind of like get the sense that they run the town and like everyone kind of lets them get away with it. Or Aaron meets this couple in the town as she's trying to get away, and it's like this.
yeah, they like the implications they stole the girl's baby from the
No,
beginning.
the implication is that Leatherface killed the family and gave the baby to these two people.
Wasn't the girl part of that family?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the implication is that Leatherface kept the two older kids and gave the baby to like the trailer park people
right.
as
Yeah,
kind of payment for keeping their mouths shut. And also this is the first time where the it has a girl. She's also in No Country for Old Men, and anytime she shows up, she's like my favorite character. And she goes, "Ma ma ma."
oh, the older lady who's like
Yeah,
big. Yeah.
the with glasses. Me and Pablo would tell each other my like for literal years afterwards that movie was released. It was just so funny to oh ma ma ma. She's just so funny. Because she also does it in No Country for Old Men. She's like the one who's like, I said you need a contract. She just has like the perfect southern voice that I find charming. Um,
Yeah, not to just completely. I know our thing is the positivity, not to completely trash it. Arlie Ermy is a good addition, and if you're not gonna have the family like element be like the overriding theme, I do like the idea of like the horror of having a cop like fuck with you is a very like real thing of like, oh, he could do whatever he wants and claim that like he's arresting me for a
yeah,
crime. And
I really like that scene where he's like, they can't do anything, and he really plays his power well of how much cops have over regular people.
right, and in a way, it's like, oh yeah, he like. I bet regular, like actual cops in non-horror movies have done shit like this to people for no reason,
Yeah,
just because they
just
could.
to show they could. Yeah,
And that's like the true horror of it. That's kind of the strange structure of it too. Is that like the big like element that forces them to stay there is they like want to wait for the sheriff to pick up the body.
I do like that they have the conversation about like leaving the body.
Why not, Aaron? It is a democracy.
Well, how would you like it if we just dumped your body out here?
I'm sorry, nobody asked her to blow her head off in our van.
Because it a says a lot about their characters as to what they want to do, and also I think like it kind of like I don't know, it puts you in a weird mood of like, would you have this conversation, would you leave the body, especially as you the audience knows what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, leave the body, guys, but you shouldn't just
Right.
leave a body
And
like this.
obviously you shouldn't. Although I would at the time I was like, oh man, they should just wrap this in a blanket so it wouldn't bounce around so much. Take it to a normal city. Figure it out there. That's the
Yeah,
smart
and
move.
that's also the other thing where it's like, oh yeah, why don't you just take it to like Austin and deal with it there? But it's like, if you don't know the whole town is evil, why would you take it for like a 6 hour?
Right. Why would you, and especially in Texas where you'd have it in your car for like 8 hours and it's like
And
horrific.
I
Yeah.
think that this is the first movie that really plays on the idea of how in the middle of nowhere they are. Like everyone else kind of did it, but like in this one, and I think it helps that the whole town is in on it. Where like in the original, where they go talk to those people at the cemetery, and they're just like, "Yeah, here you go. Here's some help for you guys." It's like, okay, why aren't these guys doing anything about the constant grave robbing?
Right.
Where in this one, it's like, oh yeah, if you go back into the town, you're screwed. And if you leave the town, you're 6 hours away from any kind of safety. So it's
That
like,
was
yeah,
That's
You're in
why
trouble.
the Next Generation sticks in my mind because it was in the suburbs, and it's like, oh, the
The,
true horror
but the next
is
generation didn't take place in the suburbs. It was just filmed in the suburbs. And the director
well,
didn't know how to isolate the fact that it was done
well, he
there. It'd be
still
like
did. He accidentally did a good job of making a suburban
it,
horror film.
and then so eventually Aaron like lures Leatherface to the meatpacking district. She tries to save her friend. It does not work. She's the last survivor. There's like a cool scene again. Like there's like a cool scene where Jessica Biel's being chased by Leatherface in the maze, and then they end up at the meatpacking district, which is or like the meatpacking plant, and it's like you guys are just doing this? Like, what? Did you guys get bored? Like, what? How did you get to this point where you made a
I do
maze?
like because they go from Leatherface's house dungeon to a different decrepit shack that still kind of looks like a dungeon
Right.
to like the abandoned meatpacking plant where there's still like rotted meat on the hooks. It's such an escalation.
And also, yeah, I do like the house in this one. It's the most ridiculous, like old, like Texas abandoned house. Where in the first one, it's literally like a just any two-story house, and in all the other ones, it's just random houses. But in this one, like the house is like
Now,
a
in
gothic
part two,
mansion.
remember they lived in an abandoned carnival dungeon. so,
there,
that's the only one that ups the stakes more than this
there,
movie.
there are parts of part two that I do like. But okay, so she escapes from Leatherface. She cuts off his hand, and then she's like running down the road, and then she sees a semi truck, and she's like screaming like "Stop! Stop!" And then the semi truck stops, and then she just kind of starts walking, and then she like loses her voice and doesn't talk anymore. And I understand what they're doing, where they're going like parallel to the beginning girl.
Right? Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense because we've literally seen Jessica Biel like fight and yell and help her all her friends and like constantly be talking. So it's just kind of like I know what you were doing, but you didn't earn this reaction from her. And I don't know how they would have stopped it like without that, but they could have done something better. It's just like a weird, like out of place. And every time that scene happens, I'm like, oh yeah, this part's dumb as hell.
Well, and I kind of get like the idea of like, oh, you've been through so much, you just can't even put together your thoughts to explain it. But I do get the sense that the first girl like escaped after like a long time.
Yeah, and I kind of get the sense that the first girl like watched her parents get killed and her child taken away, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit different. But
Right,
yeah,
right, right. But Jessica Biel regains her senses pretty quickly.
and that, again, like they shouldn't have done it because she regains it so quickly. It's just like they had to get the semi truck to go back to the house, but they couldn't like explain why, I guess, and so they just like figured out the dumbest way to do it. It's a weak sequence in an otherwise good film.
But I enjoyed it because Buddy Garrity is the truck driver that
Yeah, Buddy Garrity,
she
and he doesn't
stops.
leave his truck for no reason, despite that he understands that the truck is the best thing about this.
Yeah, that's this movie had a lot of like, oh, I feel like this is a not quite a nod to the original. It's like
Yeah, I want,
you're not really embracing it.
but yeah. So I think again, there's a lot of choices they make that other movies didn't make. Like the fact of casting Jessica Biel was good because she's actually trying, and like this could have gone to anyone. Like nobody was seeing this movie. I don't even think I knew this movie starred Jessica Biel. I
Yeah,
think
I wasn't aware.
yeah, like nobody went to see this movie for Jessica Biel, so they could have put anyone in it. But she does the best job. So next week we're gonna have more R. Lee Ermey. We're gonna have less Jessica Biel. We're gonna have more Monster Leatherface. So enjoy that as we get down to our Halloween Texas Chainsaw Month. Welcome back, guys. And after this, more guests. Because Andrew doesn't know how to do time management. And yeah, so join us for that, guys. But more importantly, join us next time for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, on our Texas Chainsaw Halloween Spectacular. Also, by I know I made it seem like it was the end. Maybe I'll put this at before
No,
that part,
just let it roll.
or maybe
That's
I won't. Who knows? But either way, guys, the last ones in Borderland are available now from Bayview Entertainment. if you like what we're doing, then go do that and listen to it. And also give a like and a subscribe. Give a like and a subscribe to our YouTube and to our podcast. And more importantly, go buy my movies because that's how I really get paid. Yeah, and we'll see you next week on the Bomb Squad. Check out our cool new logos. See you next time, guys.